She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her.
Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. This ring light is really bright. Oh my god. Whew. My contacts aren't sitting in my eyes. My eyebrows look like doo-doo today. Today we are talking about the Andrea Yates case. If you find me hard to make eye contact with the camera, it's because this story is really hard to tell. It'll probably be my first and last time talking about a true crime case involving children. It was really hard to read and learn about and research. So yeah, and I do want to add that I do go into some very graphic details of this. I didn't want to leave anything out with it. I just wanted to give every bit of information that I could find you guys today. So that is just an extra little warning. If you can't handle it, just please click off the video and I will see you guys in the next one. Andrea Yates was born July 2nd, 1964 in Hallsville, Texas. She suffered from many different illnesses growing up. She suffered from bulimia, depression, and she grew up with a lot of suicidal thoughts. However, she was always known to help others, be there for them. She was captain of the swim team, she was valedictorian of her class, and she was a member of NHS. Andrea always strived for excellence. She wanted to be perfect, and she fought for that every day. And if something wasn't perfect, she wouldn't mention it to anyone and she would keep to herself. After high school, Andrea decided to go to university to be a nurse, in which she was for 8 years. While being a nurse, she met her husband, Russell. They happened to live in the same apartment building. He was interested first. He had seen her a bunch of times. She was not interested, and then eventually she ended up making the first move. They dated for 3 years, and then they moved in and decided to get married, and they decided to start having children right away. So before their first wedding anniversary, they had their oldest son, Noah. And at this point, Andrea did quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom. She seemed to have adapted to being a mother very well to everyone on the outside, but according to her psychiatrist, on the inside, she was not adapting well at all. She had told her psychiatrist at one point that she saw a knife and thought about stabbing someone, and she hallucinated just a bunch of things after having her son. A lot of Andrea's early signs of what she ended up being diagnosed with fully, they went unnoticed, and it got to the point where it was just too late. Andrea at this point in her life was still striving to be the best and be absolutely excellent in everything that she does. So she, again, never spoke when something felt wrong to her. Rusty and Andrea both agreed that they would have as many kids as God would let them. So they went ahead and started trying for another baby again. And by the third anniversary, they had 2 more kids. And those 2 children were named John and Paul. At this time, they got into some really strict religion teaching called the I'm gonna butcher this, Warnecki method. The teaching, one thing that they were super duper big on was being minimalistic. So they sold their very nice home, they bought a mobile home, and then they ended up buying a Greyhound bus to just completely decompact everything that they have. The teaching also taught very strict parenting. And they emphasized how mothers today slack on just letting their children do whatever they want, basically not doing any discipline, and that the men in the household should go back to being the dominant of the household, if that makes sense. Now, this next part, I'm still a little bit confused about. I looked up several ways. I didn't really get the definite answer that I was 100% looking for. But according to the Michael Warnecki thing, you would essentially write a letter to them, and then they would write back, but they would tell you all your flaws, everything about you, what you need to fix, things like that. Basically, they just tell you that you're a piece of shit. It doesn't matter who you are. But when Andrea had gotten her letter back. They told her that she was evil, wicked, and a witch who was the daughter of Eve. Now, this clearly didn't set right with Andrea, and she hid the letter from everyone, so they had no idea. At this time, Andrea's beloved father was diagnosed with dementia. This really broke Andrea, but of course with her nursing background, she took in her father and started taking care of him on top of her children. Later in 1999, their son Luke was born, and then while home one day, she called her husband and said nothing to him but to come home. When Rusty walked in, he found her chewing on her fingers, not like her fingernails, like her entire fingers. And she was just shaking and said that she had needed help. When, after all of this was occurring, they found out that she had taken her father's sleeping pills and was trying to kill herself. Once she was physically okay after swallowing all those pills, she was sent to a psychiatric ward, but she was only allowed to go for a week because then insurance ran out. While in the ward, she was diagnosed with major depression and she was prescribed Zoloft. After leaving the hospital and running out of medication, she then had to go see a new doctor in which he switched her medications. He switched to one that helped with schizophrenia, there we go, and bipolar mania. Andrea wanted no medication because no medication was a big thing in the religious teaching that they were a part of. The religious teaching would teach them that doctors and medicine are bad, so when she got home, she flushed her medication down the toilet, and then when she would go back to the wards or someone would watch her take her medication to make sure she was taking it, she would hide them in her cheeks and then dispose of them. Andrea tried her own methods to get better without medication. She went back to the hospital several times. So Andrea decided to figure out her own methods to get better, in which she wasn't, and she was sent back to the hospital. And one time around, out of the several dozens that she went, she ended up staying at her parents' house after leaving the hospital. And she stayed at her parents' house to essentially have a better place to heal, is what they were hoping would come out of this. While at her parents', Andrea did not get better. The space that she was in didn't help her heal like they had hoped, and she began just ripping and pulling her hair out, and she would pick sores all over her body. And then she really started to experience visions and hallucinations at the all-time high during this. At this time, she told her psychiatrist that with her first son, she saw a person that had come to her and told her that she needed to get a knife, get a knife, get a knife, get a knife. That's what she said the voice told her 4 times in a row. Seen this hallucination up to 10 times that day, and then finally it just got to her, so she grabbed a steak knife, ran to the bathroom and held it to her neck, where her husband Rusty saw her, and he ran after her and tried to convince her to just let go of the knife. Andrea was yelling at him, "Get back, please, let me do it." And Rusty then tackled her and took her to the hospital, where she was again admitted. When she got to the hospital at this incident, she was given an emergency dose of Haldol, and once it kicked in, she was able to talk more about the experience, what happened to her, and she admitted to everything that had happened. When she confessed all of this, they had noticed that there were just claw marks on her thighs from where she was trying to hold herself back. Because imagine hearing this 10 times a day and this person coming to you, and you're already just not right in the head. It'll get to you. And she had admitted that she was holding herself back from hurting her children, and then she finally came to the conclusion that she needed to hurt herself to save everyone. Telling this story, the psychiatrist at that time had diagnosed her with severe depression and psychotic features. Her psychiatrist at the time recommended shock therapy, but due to the religion that they practiced, they wanted no help whatsoever. She wanted no help whatsoever. I believe that Rusty was kind of like, you need to take the medicine to get better. I think he was a little bit more lenient on it, but she was not. She was then dismissed 3 weeks later with tons of medications that they sent home with her just to try and get her to take the medications. And she did take the medications for a while. I'm guessing that Rusty probably convinced her that it was okay to. During this hospital visit, her mother had talked to Rusty and said, you need to get her a home no more Greyhound bus. She needs a home to live in. She needs space. And so Rusty decided to sell the Greyhound bus and go buy them a very nice house. She was doing better and successfully homeschooling the 2 oldest kids and looking after her new baby. Doctors told them not to have any more children, but they decided to anyways, and she stopped taking all medications, and again, they tried for yet again another baby. They quickly became pregnant, and then she had her daughter Marie. Andrea's father sadly passed away after the birth of Marie, and this caused Andrea to fall back into old habits, and she began falling apart. She stopped talking, she stopped drinking any form of liquids, she started pulling her hair out again, just completely losing it again. And again, you get just a little caught into emotions really quick. I would probably click off or fast forward. She started with Paul, who was just 3 years old, then went on to Luke, age 2, then John, who was age 5. She killed the children one at a time and then would take them and lay them on her bed in her bedroom. And then she went to the baby Marie. I'm not trying to cry, but this is just like heart-wrenching. As a mother, like, I just, okay. She went on to Marie, who was the youngest, who was only 6 months old, and then she left Marie floating in the water and then called her son Noah up, who was age 7. And Noah looked at Andrea and said he had to ask what was wrong with Marie. And before he could ask another question, Andrea had convicted her 5th murder. She then took Marie out and she laid her in John's arms as if he was holding her. And she left Noah floating in the bathtub. The next day, this story obviously had spread all over the United States. It was a huge, huge thing. And then Rusty, in an interview, he actually seemed supportive of Andrea. Obviously not murdering their children, but supportive and sympathetic in the way that she has a mental disorder, and that is why this happened. Meanwhile, of course, Andrea was dealing with a ton of interrogations and meeting with her lawyer. Andrea only asked her lawyer what they were going to do plea-wise, and she insisted that they don't plea not guilty because she wanted to be punished for being a bad mom. Her team was trying to plead insanity while the state was gathering tons of evidence to show that she was fully responsible and she wasn't insane at the time. Now, being in the state of Texas, this made it it's a little bit harder to plead insanity. In order to make the plea of insanity, they take whether the criminal knows what they did is wrong after the incident, or if they know right from wrong during the incident is what they look at. And in all her questionings, Andrea very clearly knew right from when she began the murders to the end that it was wrong. During her stay in jail, she was forced to take all of her medications, and when they got into her system, she, again, as times before, was able to confess more things. When she had the medications in her system, she told the investigators she believed that killing them while they were still young and innocent, that it would send them to heaven, and if she wouldn't have killed them, they would go to hell. She claims that her children were beginning to stumble, and stumbling comes from the Michael Warnecki teaching. And what they are taught is when you begin to stumble, it's better for you to kill yourself than to live a mediocre life. And everyone who knew this family said that the children were amazing and they weren't bad kids, but of course they were not perfect. And in this religion and in Andrea's eyes, everything needed to be perfect. Andrea sat in jail for 3 months when a jury finally decided that she was competent to stand trial. Due to it being hard to plead insanity in Texas, Andrea's team of lawyers, they actually set up like a mock trial to see if they could convince the jury that she was guilty for reason of insanity. But even with the mock jury, they just could not get over the fact that she killed her children and admitted it right away. The trial started 8 months after the murders. The defense argued that she was sane that morning and that she planned it, and they actually have a very good case ahead of them, which I'm going to say now about how they know that she planned it. She knew her husband left at 9 a.m. and her mother-in-law would not be at the home until 10 a.m., which gave her a 1-hour window, and she knew she had this 1-hour window. And the order in which she chose to murder each of her children was I'm not going to go into grave detail about it, but basically the way that she did the order of the children was an excellent way to not distract the other children and not worry the other children of what she was doing. Andrea's team played clips of when she was being interrogated, when she was having hallucinations, and during her confession. They did very much argue that they did not record her first confession, so because in all of these other confessions that she has, where she talks about it multiple times, she is on medication, so she's doing better mentally. They did not record her first confession, so they can't really show them that she was not insane that day. It only took the jury 3.5 hours to decide that Andrea was guilty, and 5 days later the jury sat down and it only took them 40 minutes to decide Andrea's fate. Andrea wanted to be given the death penalty. She wanted to be punished for what she did. It was what she wanted. So the jury decided that she would not receive the death penalty and that she would do life in prison. So she has to sit there and think about what she did all the time, live with it, and they feel like that is the best punishment for her. So that is the story of Andrea Yates. It is a very hard story. I really don't know that I will be able to, oh my god, I really don't know that I'll be able to do another story about children. This was really hard, but I was really far deep into it when it really hit me that this was going to be a hard one. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts down below. If you know anything on this case that I may have missed, please do not forget to comment other cases that you guys want me to cover down below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified every time that I post. Bye guys.
She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her.